Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Had a little trouble with the feed. Let's see. It looks like it's back. That's good. All right. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. I expect that, let me just give you a couple quick messages. I was talking with Rich Sheeman yesterday. And he suggested that we talk about preparedness, and he felt that a lot of people are just not ready to buy a farm, and maybe they want a plan B or a plan A, but on a smaller scale. And he suggested that we talk about how to make that happen, and can we assist in that? And we certainly can. And I've tried it several times, where we can get some farmland around us here at our farm in Missouri, and make available 2 acres, 1, 2, 5 acres, etc. And have, let's say we take 200 acres, set aside 100 of it in 1 or 2 acre parcels where you own your own land. And then the other half would be for the village buildings, the automotive shop, the solar array, the fish pond, the great big garden, the rifle range, all those things, schoolhouse, whatever's necessary. And we think that it's possible to do it now now it's got more expensive, so a couple $1,000s an acre where it used to be around $1,200. Now it looks like it's going to be $2,000 because land has gone up. If you're interested in that and participating with us, where we would be teaching and assisting, and you'd be working cooperatively with others, and you'd own your own piece of it. Give us a call on Tuesday, please. Give us a call here at USA Prepares. I'll give you that number, and we can discuss it. Now, I have a feeling that there are going to be very few people interested. And I don't want to spend my time working on something that just flat out won't happen. But I am interested if there's enough interest. So the number to call is 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. We can flesh it out on Tuesday with Rich Sheeman. Okay? It would be in Missouri. It would be rural. Be away from a lot of people. It'd be low taxes. It'd be kind of neat, I think. I've tried it before unsuccessfully, and I just have a feeling I'll have the same success rate with Rich Sheeman as we've had before. So that was one announcement. Gwyneth Isaacs, as you know, is in the hospital with broken ribs, etc., collapsed lung. She's having a tough go of it, but she may be out of the hospital in a day or two. If you'd like to send her an email with whatever you'd like to say, please send that to instructor at USAPrepares.com. INSTRUCTOR at USAPrepares.com. USAPREPARES.com. Okay, that's it for the messages today. Cathy's with us. Cathy had some things that, some unfinished business from our last class where she hosted it. And, Cathy, welcome.
Morning, Vince. How are you?
Very, very well, Cathy. And you?
I'm doing well also. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Where would you like to start today's broadcast classroom?
Well, I want to ask you your advice on washing machines. Before I start that, I have a couple questions for you. We did talk last week about refrigerators and dishwashers and a stove. I had question for you on each one of them, if I could interject that first.
Absolutely. And would you like to take my seat in this classroom, and I'll just sit back and be the guest or the interviewee? Would you like to do that?
Either way, Vince, whatever you think is best.
Well, I think it's best if you.
Than I am, but.
Oh no, I'm just a rank amateur. But I'll tell you what, I'll just be the guest and the instructor who will be on the hot seat, and then if you can take us in and out of the breaks, etc. So you're in charge. I'm ready.
Okay, Vince. A question on the refrigerator. We talked about cleaning underneath it, the coils, and behind it. The first question I have is, how far away from the back wall should you have your refrigerator pulled out?
Okay. Now, it depends. And let me give you the reason why I say that. Some refrigerators, the older models, and I'm talking from the 70s, have coils, and they're usually painted black, and it looks like a coil that snakes left and right, has some curves in it, and then welded to it, mechanically attached, are these steel wires. So it kind of looks like a grate, if you will, a cooling rack for baking, that kind of thing, but the wires are close together. And what that does is the heat that is removed from the refrigerator or freezer box, the inside, is pumped through the Freon, the refrigerant, into these coils, and the heat is then moved outside the refrigerator box. So the plan is to have enough circulation around those coils that are in the back of the refrigerator or freezer so the air can get to them, and the air can start with the cool air at the bottom as the air comes in contact just through natural movement of air in the kitchen, let's say, or the garage, wherever the appliance happens to be. The air will then cool those coils, and the coils be ready to remove more heat from inside the box. If that is the case, there are usually standoffs to prevent you from smashing those coils into the wall behind the refrigerator or freezer. I'd like to see at least an inch more of airspace behind those coils than the standoffs provide. All right. So the idea is if you have a little more space, you'll have a little more efficiency with the coils. That's one thing. Now, other refrigerators and freezers have a coil system underneath the box. That would be underneath, if you have a refrigerator, the vegetable storage bins. Underneath there is the compressor and coils. And the idea is if you put a fan on those coils, you can have the coils take a smaller amount of space. And the idea is the fan would increase the efficiency of the coils, which wouldn't be too efficient without the fan running. Well, in that case, the air usually comes in from the bottom of the refrigerator. So if you're standing looking at the refrigerator, open it up and look inside to get something out of the refrigerator or freezer, where your toes are is where the air intake is. The air is drawn in that area. A lot of times there's some kind of a decorative grill, if you will. Air is drawn in there, circulates around the coils by the fan, and is pushed outside the back of the refrigerator or freezer. If that's the case, there are usually some vents in the back in a cardboard or steel vent plate, and air needs to get outside the box. I'm thinking 2 inches minimum would be good. 4 inches would be much better. And the reason for that is the hot air has to escape somehow. Otherwise, the hot air will heat the outside of the refrigerator that you're trying to cool. And the refrigerator or freezer will be working against itself. So I'm thinking 4 inches of airspace behind one that has the coils in the bottom would be good. Then again, you also need to have air on the left and right sides of the refrigerator or freezer as well, so that hot air is not trapped in a box. Now, I saw a kitchen, custom manufactured kitchen cabinets, which was the worst of all possible designs. I guess what happened is the owner of the house was talking to the cabinet people, and the cabinet people said, well, how big's the refrigerator? And so the cabinet people measured the exact dimensions of the refrigerator and made a box that big. No room for air to circulate, no room for the heat to get out. That refrigerator is running 24 hours a day, exhausted, just trying to remove the heat. And it's almost an impossibility. So that's like the worst design. So you want a couple inches to the left, a couple inches to the right, 4 inches behind the refrigerator in most circumstances. And at the top, you need about 4 inches as well, in my opinion, at the top of the refrigerator. Now, the problem is if you have a lot of space at the top of the refrigerator, if you have cabinets over the refrigerator, which we do, if you have a lot of space, it doesn't look so good. So 4 inches would be great. And you don't want to pile things up on top of the refrigerator because you restrict the airflow, the hot air that is the air that has removed the heat from inside the refrigerator. It's got to go someplace. So the thing to do is not restrict the air on all the sides. And we mentioned this before, the rollers. You can buy these rollers, appliance rollers, and they are designed, they're like a bunch of roller skates on a flat platform, and there are two of them in a kit. About $20, $15 to $20 or so, and they have these white plastic rollers, and a bunch of them. And it might be like 12 rollers or 14 or 16 or 18, I don't know the exact number. We have them under every one of our refrigerators and freezers. And the idea is it jacks up the refrigerator or freezer about 2 inches, inch and a half, 2 inches, more airspace. The appliance has more air to circulate around the coils. It's easier to clean underneath it. And if you have to roll it out to get behind it and clean it and get to the sides and clean, it's easy because it rolls straight out. Now, you can't really turn corners with it. So it's really for rolling straight in and straight out. I suggest our class consider that. Did that answer your question, Cathy?
Yeah, very well, Vincent. I don't have all those boxes checked with ours because of the size of ours. We do have some air on top and behind, but the sides are really tight. And it was the same deal. It was like a pre-made space there. And I bet you most houses don't have the correct air going around the refrigerator.
Well, Cathy, there are a couple reasons for that. One reason is the builders don't seem to think about that. The kitchen designers don't seem to think about that. And the other reason is that, let's say a person has, and I'm just going to pick a number, a 17 cubic foot refrigerator. And let's say it's 30 years old. They finally decide that avocado's not the color they want. And it still works, but they want white or black or stainless appearance. So they buy another refrigerator, and that refrigerator is not 17 cubic feet anymore. It's 18 cubic feet. So now, if there was a built-in space, you've got an extra cubic foot to deal with, and that may go to the sides, it may go to the height, it may go to the depth, or it may go to all. You know, it may be accommodated by all of those, the width, the depth, and the height. So now you have a tighter and tighter and tighter space to put that refrigerator in, or that freezer. So those are the reasons why this happens. But if you can get more room around it, as I said, the 2 inches on each side, plus jack it up on the bottom with the rollers and have about 4 inches in the top and about 4 inches in the bottom, your refrigerator or freezer is going to run much more efficiently and save a significant amount of electricity.
Cathy, I'm here at USA Prepares with Vince, and I'm interviewing Vince today. So we are going to be talking about washing machines, the care, the maintenance, the prevention, and what you can do to repair it. So Vince, can you give me your thoughts on maybe the first one or top two things that go wrong with a washing machine and what you would do to repair it and or prevent the problem?
Yeah. Sure. There are things that you really shouldn't put in the washing machine. And one of them, first of all, you shouldn't overload it. And some people do. Some people will put some really heavy carpet, small sections of, carpeting in there. Some people will put some heavy comforters in there. And some people might put curtains in there. Or they may overload it with blue jeans and say, you know what, I think there's room for 2 more pairs of blue jeans. What that does is it really stresses the motor, it stresses the drivetrain, it stresses the transmission, it stresses everything, including the mounting system, the suspension system for the basket, and the tub. So one thing to do is not overload the clothes washing machine. I'm talking about an agitator type. I can't really speak to the front load ones because I've never considered having one. And so the best washing machine, in my opinion, the ones that I've read about that fail, that would be the new type, these high efficiency types. For example, if you go to the internet, Craigslist, and you look up washer, meaning clothes washer, you'll find that some of these new non-agitator top loads are available for sale. And they'll say things like, works great, but makes a lot of noise. I think it needs bearings. So we're looking at a $600 washing machine that needs bearings, and that's probably a $200 or $300 job. And they last a couple of years, and you'll be doing it again every couple of years if the machine lasts that long. So I'm not interested in any of those things. I'm not interested in the $1,000 washers, the front loads. It makes no sense to me because they don't even come with the stand to raise them up high enough to use them. So the best to me is the Whirlpool style that's been around probably since the 1960s with that standard agitator. There's no way that it's been improved on that makes any significant difference. It's a great design. Okay. That being said, you can buy it as a Kenmore, a Whirlpool, a Maytag, and some other, you could even buy it from Sam's Club with their house brand on it. And, that was called Estate, E-S-T-A-T-E. All right. That being said, you don't want to overload it. And if you're going to make a mistake about the amount of water to put in it to set the height of the water, error on the side of too much. Okay? Set it for more than you think, and your washing machine will last longer. It's really hard to push those clothes around if you don't have enough water. So make sure if you're going to make a mistake, make it with too much water. Now you don't have to, in my opinion, you don't have to use hot water. You can use cold water. For probably almost all the time we've been at this house, almost 15 years, I didn't even hook up the hot water to the washing machine, just had cold water. So I can tell you with powdered detergent, you can use cold water. And the detergent actually acts as a lubricant for the water pump. So washing without detergent is not such a good idea. It also acts as a surfactant, which will loosen the surface tension. So if you have any grit and grime in there, it will send it right down the drain when the pump spins the water out. Okay, that being said, there are people who I've known who have been in the construction trades where they work with saws and sawdust and sheetrock. Those particles of dirt in the washing machine tear them up in 2 years. The water pumps can't take it. The seals can't take it. So my suggestion to make your washing machine last longer is shake out the clothes, maybe outside where you don't breathe the dust, if you're in that kind of environment. Don't put spackle compound, that's on clothes in the washing machine. It just tears them up. So that's another thought. When the clothes are put in and the washing machine goes out of balance, when it spins, you'll hear it go bang, 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 bang. That's easy to fix. You shut it off immediately. Don't think it's going to fix itself. Stop the washing machine immediately. Readjust the clothes so that when you look down, there's a balanced load, 360 degrees inside the tub. And then what you do is if it still is out of balance or the washing machine starts walking, lift up the front of it a little bit.
Hi, everyone. This is Cathy. I'm here with my friend Vince at USA Prepares, and I am interviewing Vince today to learn much of what he has to share with us. We're talking about washing machines. Vince, can I make a couple comments on what you said?
You're in charge. Yes.
Okay. Vince, you talked about the carpets with the rubber backing. I remember reading that you really shouldn't wash those in the washing machine because the rubber will come off, and they said that rubber can go down and clog the filter underneath in the washing machine. He recommends if you have to wash them, take them to a laundromat, the one that spins around rather than agitate. And he said even then, some of them won't even allow you to wash them there because it will come off and mess up their washing machines too.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with that. And no question. And, you know, the thing to do is not put in the washing machine things that you don't want to clog up the washing machine. It's as simple as that. Now, let's say you do, and we're talking about top load agitator type washing machines. They're the best. Absolutely the best. And class, if you think about it, if you have one and you don't want to be without one, you might want to try to find a used one on Craigslist because they don't make very many of them anymore. They're very hard to get and they become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. But I do have some recommendations on how you can make yours last longer if you'd like to talk about that, Cathy.
Sure. And Vince, one more thing, talking about putting things in the washing machine. I just ask everybody to check their pockets, whether it's a coat pocket, jeans, apron, a shirt pocket. I have left bobby pins, and sometimes I'll have like little nuts or screws my husband will have in his pocket, toothpicks, all that I'm sure can get down into the, I don't know what it's called where it would get plugged, Vince, but I know that I've read that they can get down in there. I read one story where there was a hairdresser and she would always throw her change in her apron and forget to take it out. And the man found coins and he even found bills that had got wrapped around down there. Now, I don't know what kind it was. I don't know if it was an agitator or a front loader, but try to check your pockets because I'm sure none of that is good if it gets down in through them little holes.
That's absolutely correct. And coins can abrade the porcelain coating on the steel tubs. Coins can abrade the plastic tubs, like some General Electric models have a plastic tub, a PVC type tub, and if they put dings and dents and scratches in it, that can wear out the clothes faster because the clothes will be rubbing against those dings and dents and scratches and divots and so forth. So the idea is, here's what we do, Cathy. Specifically, I'll just tell you what I do. When I'm washing blue jeans, first of all, they go inside out. The zipper gets zipped, and I've checked the pockets before they go inside out. The reason for that is I don't want the zipper, which is metal, which has sharp edges, tearing up the agitator. I don't want the zipper to rubbing against other clothes, wearing them out faster. So our clothes last a lot longer because I take the blue jeans, put them inside out, zip up the zipper so it doesn't become like a grinding wheel inside the washing machine when it's running. So your clothes can last longer. If you wash the blue jeans inside and out, the agitation of the movement of the agitator will not go directly against the outside of the blue jeans, and they'll stay blue longer. I like dark blue jeans. I don't like to buy blue jeans that look like they're already worn out before I get them. So my blue jeans start out really dark blue, and I wash them inside and out. And sometimes I don't even wash them, on the normal cycle. I might wash them on the, the delicate cycle, if you want to call it that, or the permanent press, or whatever that cycle is that the motor runs at half speed. So that's what I do. The other thing I do is because I use Wind Fresh, WINDFRESH, laundry detergent. It's about 215 washes in a 35-pound bucket. I just raised the price to a little over $17 now at Sam's Club. I think that's the finest if you're going to buy a detergent. That's the finest value, best overall laundry detergent. Wind Fresh works great. What I'll do is I will start the fill of the washing machine with no clothes in it. And I know about how it's going to be set, the water level. I know what's going to be low, medium, or high. Typically it's medium or high. And I'll put the detergent in it while it's filling. Then the detergent has a little bit longer to dissolve. Then what happens is the washing machine starts the agitation, and then I shut it off, and I'll let it set for like 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever seems to be convenient for me. but at least 5 minutes, and then I'll go back and then start it up. That way the powdered detergent has time to dissolve. And why do I like the powdered detergent rather than those little pods? Because they cost about half as much. It makes no sense to me to have the detergent company tell me how much detergent I should put in the washing machine, 1 or 2 or however many pods they think. I want to measure it with the pouring cup that I have this powdered detergent in. I want to determine exactly how much. And it may be the equivalent of 1.27358 pods. Or it might be, some other number. What I'm saying is I'm not going to let them control how much. I'm going to control how much. And we have lost our way in terms of convenience. We don't even know how to measure detergent anymore, Cathy, in terms of new appliances.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree, Vince. Vince, I want you to mention the simple things that you can repair, but I just want to bring one other quick tip up about when you're washing clothes, like if you're going to wash things that are long, like curtains or sheets, I would do those separately. Don't try to mix other things in there because the clothes get twisted and tangled, and sometimes I've even seen like something with a strap get caught around the agitator, and then it gets all ripped or stretched out. So if you're doing long things, I would just do those separate. But I did want to get back to you and ask you, what are your home repairs that you would do and the cost of it and where you would get your supplies?
Okay. I bought all of our supplies on eBay. So we have a primary washing machine, then we have a spare, and then we have a spare. And they're all Whirlpool. And they all have the same transmission, pretty much the same motor. The timers are a little bit different. What Whirlpool has done is they've changed the timer so that you have more or fewer cycles. But pretty much the mechanics are very, very similar, whether it be an estate branded Whirlpool or a Kenmore branded Whirlpool. And sometimes they call them commercial quality. Sometimes they call them heavy duty. Those darn things are the same thing to me. They look the same to me, mechanically, when you take them apart. So here's what you can do. And I mentioned for about $30 you can buy all the parts you need. All right, here's what goes bad on a agitator type washing machine. Number one, there is a pump. And the pump it's the water pump. The Whirlpool water pump is pretty simple. It has an inlet and an outlet, and it's held on by 2 snap clamps. Literally, you can take all of these repairs can be done with 3 tools. A flat blade screwdriver, medium size, a Phillips screwdriver, number 2. That would be number 2 Phillips screwdriver. And the third thing would be a pair of crescent type pliers. Right? You can do all of these repairs with just those 3 tools. All right. So a water pump is the symptom is you got water on the floor. You start your washer and there's water on the floor. That's typically the water pump. Now you can buy them on eBay, and this is where you get them. And you can look up your washing machine make and model, and you can look it up and it'll say, here are some water pumps. And then you find that water pump model, the model number of the water pump itself. And then you search for that. And you'll find out that, the first hit might have been $20 for the water pump. But if you type in the water pump model that you learned from your search on eBay, like model number 3363394, Whirlpool water pump, you'll find you can buy it for $9.95. Shipped. Okay? So that's one thing. And it's held in with 2 clamps. Now, to get to it, and you just go to YouTube and look at how to replace it, and you'll watch a 10-minute video and you'll see how easy this is. There are 2 Phillips screws to loosen the top control panel on the top. You'll see them. They're right up front usually. Sometimes they're in the back, but 2 Phillips screws, you loosen them, and you can flip the control panel backward, out of the way. And if you've moved the washing machine a little bit forward, let's say a foot forward, and you can get behind it. But you don't have to really get behind it. You just need to flip the control panel back after you loosen these 2 Phillips screws. Then you'll see that with the flat blade screwdriver, you can loosen the clamps that hold the entire front cover on. So the front cover is the left side, the right side, and the front, and the top. And that will lift off. Now, you might have to disconnect the switch for the lid shutoff switch. And that's just a plug. And you can loosen that with your pair of pliers that you have. So then you just lift the cover up and forward, and the whole cover for the whole washing machine comes off. Now you see the basket, the motor, and everything. Well, that's where the water pump is. Now, connecting connecting the motor to the transmission is a coupler. Now, that is a device that drives the transmission. They are about $3, $4, $5 on eBay, and they're called a washing machine coupler. You can buy 25 of them for $25.09 shipped. So the more you buy, the less expensive they are. I have 5 of them. And I've replaced them in the past. But, you might want to get a couple of them because it'll cost probably almost the same amount to get 2, 3, or 4 as it'll cost to get 1. The reason is the shipping is the big expense in these couplers. And they're real small. They're about the size of a little bit bigger than the silver dollar and probably 5 silver dollars thick. They're made out of plastic and rubber. So that is another thing that fails. And when it fails, it sounds like stripped gears. It makes a lot of noise, but it's a couple $1 part. So you can call the washing machine repair guy or gal and spend $100 to have them come look at it, or you can buy figure it out yourself by taking that, the cover of the washing machine off. So water pump, coupler, and there's another thing that you might want to consider, and those are called the washing machine agitator dogs, D-O-G-S, as in puppies, dogs. And they're about, $3. So you can get, and you need 4 of them. I found here $3.90 shipped for the dogs. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Hi, everyone. This is Cathy. I'm talking with Vince about washing machines. Vince, you were talking about, I believe you said the dog.
Yeah, I have a quick question for you before I continue. Are you with us for 1 hour or 2? Because if you're with us for 1 hour, then I'll continue some of this discussion on hour number 2. And I want to make sure I provide complete answers. So what was your schedule for today?
Vince, I can be with you till 11:30, unless that doesn't work for you.
Okay. So that's 2 hours. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's
are you saying
10:53? Yeah, I can be like another 40 minutes or so, then I have to leave.
Okay. All right, great. So the reason I'm asking is I wanted to make sure I give complete answers so that the class can undertake some of these repairs themselves. Okay, so that's what I'll do. So there are these things called dogs. Now, if you've ever looked down on a washing machine that's an agitator type with the lid open so you can watch it, you'll see that the agitator goes in, let's say, a clockwise direction and stops. Then it goes in a clockwise direction again and stops and goes, so it keeps moving, and it moves the clothes, but it is not round and round and round and round continuously because it stops. And to make that action happen, there are these things called dogs. And a dog is about 1 inch long, and it has the shape of a paisley, a small paisley. And there are 4 of them. And sometimes they break. Now, they're very inexpensive, and they're very easy to replace. They are right under the center cap of the agitator. So if you look at the agitator, you'll see that there's a cap that you can pry off with that one little screwdriver, that medium-sized screwdriver that you have, because it only takes 3 tools to pretty much to fix one of these washing machines, no matter what the problem is, whether it be a motor or a water pump or the coupler, or even the fill valve, which we can talk about as well. So if your washing machine agitator doesn't seem to be operating properly, and you can spin it forward and backwards, and and you think that it should only go in one direction, which is correct. It's the dogs that have failed. And they can be found on eBay, very inexpensively. I'm looking at a package of 40 of them. Now you only need 4. You don't need 40. $25 shipped. If you want to buy, here's some more. 4 of them. They're 99 cents with, $2.90 shipping. So expect to spend about somewhere around $5 with shipping for 4 dogs. So you might want to get 4 or 8 or, a little bit more than you might think you need if you're going to keep that washing machine around for a long time. So that's another thing that can fail. The next thing is, let's say the motor doesn't start. You set the dial and you start filling your washing machine and it fills up, and then you expect the agitator to start working. And you hear, well, shut it off immediately because you'll burn up the motor if that happens. Many times, not all the time, but many times, the reason that it won't start is the capacitor is bad. Now, a capacitor is a cylindrical device. It might be, 1.5 inches in diameter. It might be about 3 inches long. So think of it like a scaled down center core of a roll of toilet paper. Okay, it's like that and has 2 terminals on it. And what happens is it gets charged with electricity, 115, 120 volt electricity. And when the motor of the washing machine starts, it draws more current than the running current. So it needs a boost. So it's like just to get the motor to start the initial spinning of the shaft of the motor, the armature of the motor. And it's done by a capacitor. Now, capacitors have a life that is determined by 2 things: age and on-off cycles. So every time you start your washing machine, every time you power that motor up, you've used one of those cycles of the capacitor. And it's not infinite. So it might last 10, 15 years. It might last longer. But the other thing that causes these capacitors to fail is heat. And if you have your washing machine in a nice warm area, that heat will tend to dry out the gelatin, if you will, that separates the foil layers of the capacitor. A capacitor is nothing more than a long strip of foil separated by, let's say, wax paper. And it's wound round and round and round many, many times. And there's like a dielectric type of gelatin in some of them, and that fails. Or the wax paper separation between the layers of foil fails. And that would cause the capacitor to not work. And how much is a capacitor? $15 shipped. And the same thing. Read the capacitor, the make and model, and buy that very same one. Now, you can buy a used one for a little bit less, maybe $5 or $10. But why would you do that? Why would you buy a used one that has wear on it when you know it's going to wear out? Buy a new one, okay? I've got one spare here. I think it was $15. You can get them on Amazon or at eBay. And so I haven't finished with some of the easy-to-replace parts. There's only 2 terminals on a capacitor, just 2. Now, don't touch them, because if it still works, you can shock yourself.
Hi, everyone. This is Cathy. I'm at USA Repairs with my friend Vince. We've been talking about repairing washing machines and prevention. I have a couple comments, Vince. One was in our other house, and I still have the washing machine and my dryer. I have the old Maytag, and my Maytag right now is, I believe it's 36 years old, my dryer. We did have to replace the washer, but the man came in when I was having trouble with a dishwasher, and he was the one that replaced the dishwasher switch. And he came in and he looked at those Maytags, and he said, "Lady," he said, "hang on to those Maytags as long as you can. They don't make them like that anymore." And he said, "Whatever parts cost," he said, "I would just replace them or keep replacing them as long as you can." So I still have my dryer, and I have another old used Maytag that I use. But what you were saying, Vince, is really true, that they sure don't make them like they used to. I
had a comment about that, Cathy. Years ago, when people like you and your husband and Mrs. Finelli and I and, our parents would buy an appliance, we might have gone to an appliance store. And if they sold Maytag, there would be a display. And it would be a little display of us versus them. And the Maytag display would say, here's our belt, here's our pulley, and they take a small section of the belt if it's a dryer. Here's the pulley that we use in our dryer. Here, and here's theirs. And you'd find that theirs, meaning the other brands that competed with Maytag before Maytag was, bundled in with the Whirlpool group, you would see that everything that Maytag, all the Maytag parts were heavier, stronger, weighed more, etc. And that's why they were so durable. And so the Maytag name was the name that was synonymous with appliance durability. So, yes, and that's probably why the appliance repair person said what he said. And he's absolutely, positively correct. Everything was heavier on a Maytag, and that's why they lasted longer. But today, we don't seem to be the GDP, they seem to be more interested in, well, can I get it in candy apple red? That's really important, or do you have one that has a satin stainless steel finish? You have one of those. Or do you have one that has more cycles because more cycles is important? That's nuts. Because frankly, there's only really 2 cycles that you need on a washing machine, gentle and regular. That's it. And I may be confused, but I can get everything done with those 2 cycles. And probably 80 or 90% of what I want to get done, or Mrs. Finelli wants to get done with a washer, gets done with the regular cycle. Is that true, Cathy, with you guys too?
Oh, absolutely. To me, function has always been more important than all the bells and whistles, and I think more can go wrong. I just like the old-fashioned, you turn the handle, there's no computer screen or computerized parts at the top. Mine's just the old-fashioned, you turn it. Yep.
That's what we have. I wanted to get back to the capacitor for just a couple minutes. So, class, this capacitor, I said, starts the motor, the electric motor of the washing machine. By the way, it's gasoline and diesel engines and electric motors. Okay? And now an electric car has an electric motor, but they're electric motors. That's why I use the term motor. The capacitor starts the motor spinning. And you can go to the internet and you can just type in Whirlpool washer won't start. And you'll find a whole bunch of results. And you may see a timer. Now, it could be the timer, but more likely than not, it's the capacitor that's the problem. And a capacitor will stay charged for maybe an hour or 2. So if it was charged and if it does work, you can get shocked by touching it. So when you work with a washing machine or any appliance, you want to unplug it, right? And then if you're going to work with that capacitor, you can discharge it. It's not comfortable for the capacitor. It's hard on it. But you can discharge it with a screwdriver across the 2 terminals. But make sure the washing machine has been unplugged and you've let it set for an hour or 2 to naturally discharge. If the capacitor has failed already, it won't have a charge in it to begin with. But if it is good, you could shock yourself. I had a friend when I was growing up, and he would charge up a capacitor and put it in his front pants pocket. And this is in the grammar school days. And he'd walk up to someone, and he would shock them right through his pants, through their pants, and they wouldn't know what happened. So, you can get shocked with them. And the cost is about $15, and buy a new one rather than a used one if you're going to do it. And keep it cool and dry, and I put it in a Ziploc bag kind of thing and, mark what it's for if you're going to buy one, have as a spare. And that way you keep air from exchanging and having the capacitor fail just from being in the air longer than it needs to be. There's another thing that you can think about, and that is the fill valve. Now, if you have galvanized pipes, or if you have silt in your pipes without having a whole house water filter, this silt can clog the screen in what's called the fill valve. The fill valve is where those 2 hoses connect from your plumbing system behind the washing machine to the washer. You have those black hoses typically, and where they connect to the washer is there's a screen that filters out the chunks, and it's a pretty fine mesh screen. So if you have calcium, hard water, you will be clogging that screen, and you'll see a very slow filling of the washing machine. In terms of water, it takes a long time. Well, if you shut off the water, use that crescent wrench that I talked about, you can unscrew the brass couplings or the stainless couplings to the fill valve. And usually the fill valve threads are plastic, so you won't have corrosion locking the hose to the fill valve threads. You'll see a screen in there. And if it's lime, vinegar will dissolve the lime. You can take the vinegar and put it in a small little, a saucer, if you will, or a little cup. And you only need like a quarter of an ounce. Put on a Q-tip, dab it on the screen, and you'll start to dissolve the lime. That's a way to dissolve the lime. Or if you can figure out how to pour it in there without having it run down the back of the washer, that'd be great. But bear in mind that vinegar is corrosive. So I use paper towels to make sure if I drip, I don't drip down the galvanized steel plate on the back of the washing machine. Then you can use like an old toothbrush, and you can scrub out the calcium deposits that have been loosened by the vinegar. Or if it's rust, you can do the same thing. And if you have one of those little spray bottles that you might water your plants with, you can spray vinegar in there, and then rinse it with a final rinse of water and get all those chunks and deposits out of there, and then it'll fill better. But let's say your fill valve is broken and only the hot side works. Well, that's kind of common because most of your washing is with cold water and less of it's done with hot water. So the hot water side of the fill valve wears out faster. If you're determined that you don't want to buy or replace the fill valve, you don't have to. All you do is switch the hot and cold hoses. So the cold water line is connected to the hot side of the fill valve, and the hot side is connected to the cold. And then you just set your washing machine to hot, which is really drawing cold water. And you don't have to replace that fill valve, but you'll only be using cold water. Okay? That's one very easy way to solve the problem, and I've done that for years. I've decided that, I'm just going to get a spare fill valve. And I ordered that on eBay as well. And so in our plumbing department, for the washing machines, we have a spare Whirlpool washer. And here's some of the key words: Whirlpool, washer, water, inlet, fill valve. And you can buy the same one that I bought. It was $14.55 shipped. Now, what do they cost if you buy a Whirlpool brand? Now, this would be a made in China brand. They work fine. I see here, here's one for $192. It's a little different, but you can spend way more money than you need to. Here's another one that's $157. You can get them for a little over $14, and they work just fine. So you might want to have one of those spares, spare washing machine fill valve. You might want to have a spare capacitor. You might want to have some spare dogs, and you might want to have a spare water pump, and you might want to have a spare drive coupling. It might be a little more than $30, but I was thinking, the big ones would be the drive coupling, the water pump, and the fill valve. So about $30 does that. Capacitor drives it, closer to $50. But you may find that it's not the capacitor. Now you can go to you can go to YouTube and type in test washing machine capacitor. And there's a bunch of YouTube videos, and I'll show you how to do that with your digital voltmeter or your analog voltmeter. It's really simple. It takes 10 seconds to test it. All you do is you set first of all, you want to make sure your capacitor is discharged, and then you can, I'm not going to tell you how to do it because I want to make sure you do it carefully and correctly. Just go to YouTube and look at testing washing machine capacitor. It's literally a couple seconds. So those are a couple of the big ones. And there's another thing that you can do to, and I really like this one. There is a transmission in these washing machines. The transmission is it's in a cast iron case. It's machined. It has a couple gears, if you will, and it's bathed in oil. And there's a little vent hole so that as the oil expands, it doesn't pop the seals on the transmission. But I believe when these were made, they used conventional oil rather than synthetic oil, which can tend to volatilize. And so if you start out with a quart of oil, you have less, in 10, 15, 20 years. So what I did was I added more oil. But Whirlpool, Maytag, Kenmore, those brands do not have a way of removing a fill plug to pour the oil in. So what there is a top cover with a little tiny hole. And the hole is about the size of a ballpoint pen. So if you want to fill this thing up or top it off, you're going to have to guess. So what I used was synthetic differential lubricant, which you can call gear oil, 75W90 full synthetic gear oil. And I put it over the heating vent in the house to warm it up. And then I got a syringe, a cattle syringe, which is about 2/3 of an ounce. This is a pretty big hypodermic needle. And I ground the pointed tip flat so that I just put it on the grinding wheel, wore some safety goggles, and ground that off flat. And now I put a dental pick in there to remove the burrs.
This is Cathy. I'm with Vince. And Vince, you were talking about the transmission and the oil.
Yeah. And so the transmission, you can see the transmission when you remove the front cover of the washing machine. It's below the tub. And you'll see it's a cast iron piece. It's heavy. And there is a stamped sheet metal lid on top with a little bump. And the bump would be about half the size of a marble, from yesteryear, marbles. And in the center of this bump, this raised bump, is a little tiny hole the size of the ball of a ballpoint pen. So it's actually smaller than a number 2 pencil lead. And you can use that to fill up the transmission, but, take forever. But you can top it off pretty easily. But you have to probably make a tool, and I don't know if you can buy a tool to do this. So I took a cattle syringe that we had, got a bunch of those because sometimes we have to give cattle an injection if they get sick, vitamins, that kind of thing. Well, so these syringes hold about 2/3 of an ounce. And I heat the 75W90 gear oil, which is pretty thick. It's like the thickness of, let's say, vegetable oil, maybe a little bit thicker. But if you warm it up on the heating vent for a couple hours, it will be able to be pushed through this large diameter hypodermic needle. But the shape of the hypodermic needle needs to be modified. So you have to grind off the point because you can't fill it with the point, the sharp edge of the needle. You have to grind that flat. And you can use a file, you can use a grinding wheel. And then you might have some burrs, so you can use a dental pick to, make sure that the end is not closed shut through the grinding operation. Then you have to bend it into the shape of an L. So you take half of the needle, at the center of the needle, you can put it in a flame, a gas flame with a pair of pliers, heat it till it glows red, and just gently heat it, and then you can put a gentle bend into this hypodermic needle. So instead of a straight needle, it's shaped like an L. Now once you've done that, you can fill the hypodermic needle, take out the plunger, fill it with this 75W90 full synthetic gear oil, and you can just slowly pump it through the syringe into the transmission, through that little tiny vent hole that I talked about. And if you use full synthetic oil, it'll go in easier. And what I have found is the transmissions absolutely sound magnificent. It takes what might have been a slightly noisy transmission in a washing machine, and it turns it into a silky, smooth, better than new sound. It's incredible. It seems to have more power. It's smoother. And I know for a fact that it will last way longer. So you can buy the gear oil that, Whirlpool sells by the quart, or you can spend way less and have a multi-purpose 75W90 full synthetic gear oil. You can get it at the Chinese factory outlet. You can get it at, AutoZone, etc. But it has to be warm to push it through the hypodermic needle. And I have a feeling that your husband, when he hears this, he's going to want to do it to your washing machine with the Agitator. It really, really works well. Any comments, Cathy, about that?
Oh, I think you're right. I'm going to play it for him later. Vince, okay. I have a question for you before I have to go. You talked about having spare appliances. If we were to get any extra, we have a pole barn, but it's not heated. Is that okay to store appliances, or are you going to risk like a rust situation or the hot to cold?
Yeah, and here's the problem. There's a moisture problem. When you say you have a pole barn, does it have like lots of air leaks like everybody else's pole barn, or is it pretty tight?
It's fairly tight, but I mean, there's no gaps underneath we have a great big door, and then we have another side door, and then like a regular garage door. We have like 3 doors, but none of them leak, but it's not heated in any way, so.
How about moisture? On in the morning, after a cool night, cool, damp night, is anything damp inside in the morning?
It is if it were to rain, like if we were to get rain or, yeah.
So here's the answer. The answer is mice, love to find shelter. So they'll get in there. I mean, mice can set up shop in there, and that's a problem. So I think the appliance will not last as long in that environment as it would with garage doors that close tightly, like overhead garage doors, and a concrete floor. Okay, I wanted to thank Cathy for being with us, and I also wanted to apologize to Arjun because the way I've got this system configured in the studio, I can't look at the call screen and the traffic screen on how the bits are moving back and forth between Missouri, where the farm is, and GCN. So I didn't have the call screen up, and Arjun, you've been on hold for a better part of an hour. Welcome. How can I help you?
It's fine. Yep, it's no problem at all, first of all, and it's good to talk to you after a long time.
Yeah, it's great to hear your voice.
I'm actually, yes, I'm actually facing a problem at my work, and the thing is that, my coworkers, they actually don't miss any opportunity to insult me, and the thing is that, they have created, situations that I'm not fresh out of college. I have been working for some time, and I've seen these situations previously also, and during those times, I didn't have any other option but just to continue with my work. But the thing is that, but now it's the situation, they create such pressured situation for you. Even if you ask for if you ask for a small thing, they will come out and they will insult you. If the manager is not there, they will insult you. And if you tell the manager this thing, then they will not actually help you out. So this is the problem that actually I'm facing, and it's not actually a new thing. I have seen this thing many times, and this is the only reason why I leave my jobs. If I move to another jobs, and I only leave my job just because of this reason, that these things starts happening in the job, and this is happening at this current place also. So I don't know how to tackle it. If I just if I have to stay here, then I just have to just take up all these things, and it just ruins your day, and it's just so much pressure mentally, on your brain, and so this is the problem that actually I'm facing here.
Okay, so Arjun, how long have you been at this company?
1 year, around 1 year, yes.
Okay. Can you change companies easily?
Easily, yeah. Well, actually, yeah, I can find jobs, I can actually move to other jobs. Yes, I can, yes.
Okay. And are you working from home or are you working in with other people in the same room at their site, meaning the company site?
Yep, I'm working from home since COVID.
Okay. So when these other people give you a hard time, did you say they insult you? Is that the term you used? Because I didn't hear that very clearly.
Yes.
Okay. So the problem is
they will insult you. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Is this kind of a group thing where they insult you on like a conference call, a video conference call, a audio conference call? Is that it, or is it just one person insulting you at a time?
Yes. Well, there are two people. Like one is my coworker. One is my coworker, and then there is another lady. And so they have been working together for a long time, and they will only do it like when the manager is not in the call. And
okay, so
they have yes.
Okay, so I think I have some of what I need to help you. So it sounds like you're the odd guy, the odd man out. Now, that doesn't mean that you're weird or anything. It's just that they have been working together for a while, and you're the new guy. Is that right?
Yeah, it could be like that, or it could be that there is sort of a thing that people need praise for whatever they are doing. And it's very hard for me to provide fake praise, to these guys. And so I think that's why I think like that. I think I'm an odd guy. That's one reason. That's what. Yeah.
Okay. Are you the most technically competent of the three?
Oh, well, actually, no. There is another guy who has been working for more years than me. So he's more technically competent here.
Okay. Well, it sounds to me like this is driving you crazy. And I have been in situations where I've worked with other people. And people used to say to me when I was in Virginia, working at our own computer manufacturing company, so what is it about computers? Why do you like working with computers? And I would say, because I can't stand working with people. And for the kind of reasons that you've discussed, it is awful working with most people. They're petty. They're jealous. And if there's a corporate ladder and you're trying to do a good job and you're trying to climb the corporate ladder by doing, being the best you can be for, riding for the brand, pulling for the company, doing the best you can for the company so the company does well. And maybe they'll recognize that you help them do well. And, as they do better, you do better, all that kind of stuff. Well, there are always people who are jealous of that. And so while you're trying to climb the corporate ladder by doing just the right thing, the good thing, good job, going above and beyond, there are people who are trying to either shake the ladder and knock you off or just flat out pull you down off the ladder. And if they pull you down, they can climb and take your place. And that's what people are like. And that's why it's miserable working with many people, most people. And I don't like that. So, you have a choice, and you have the same choice that I had. And I had in my case, it was my boss. He was a drunk. He was a miserable guy. And no matter what I did, in the Monday morning, he'd say, call me into his office. Vinny. He was vice president at the time. And I reported directly to him. Vinny, I want you to go right, keep going right, and I'll tell you when to stop. Okay. And I'd go back to my cubicle, and I would go, and I was in charge of computer systems. And I would do my thing, and I'd keep going right, and he'd call me in on Tuesday, and he'd say, okay, so where are you? And I go, well, I've been going right. And he'd go, what's the matter with you? I told you to go left. What's the matter with you? And I get beat up. No matter what I did, I got beat up, and it was awful. So what I did was I saw a course on how to be, it was back in the 80s, how to invest in real estate and become financially independent. And it was $495 for this Al Lowery course. It was Saturday and Sunday, and you could attend all morning of Saturday, and if you didn't like it, you get your money back. But if you stayed, you didn't get any money back. You know, your $495 was kept by the people who offered this course. Spent the $495, and I was absolutely enthralled. I thought, I can do this. I can invest in real estate, you know, buy single-family houses, apartment buildings, etc., and I can make it work. And so what happened was I started, well, after I spent the $495, I spent $100 on books. Now I was into it for about $600. I came home and talked to Mrs. Finelli and told her what I did. And now that I spent $600 back in the 1980s, that was a lot of money. So I had to go buy a building. So I bought an apartment building. And I bought the wrong one. And I realized it. So I bought another one. And that wasn't the right one either. So I bought the third one. That was the right one. So I bought 3 apartment buildings in 1 month, set them all to close on the same day. You know, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And the banks didn't know about it. I spent way more money than they'd ever lend me. No bank would ever lend me that much money. And I had the closings, and now I was the owner, and they lent me the funds. Well, I was a real estate investor at that point, and then I kept buying one more building a month. And after a while, after 11 months, I had a bunch of buildings. And I had tenants, and I had cash flow, and everything was working. And I had the financial independence at that time to go to my boss's boss and say, you know, I really like the company, but I really don't want to work for this guy. He's hard to work for. Can I work for this other guy? And the boss said, if you can convince the other guy to let you work for him, yeah, go ahead. So I asked the other guy, who was a wonderful boss. And because I had the financial independence of, and back then I had a mortgage. You know, I didn't have car payments, but I had a mortgage because we had a nice house, and we were renovating the house, and I was renovating these apartment buildings and single family homes in the evenings after work and on weekends. Well, the bottom line was I had the courage to say, you know what, I have enough security that I've built for myself and my family as the head of the household to ask for a different boss. And that was, you know, asking for a different boss is unheard of. At least back in the 80s it was. And I had the courage to do that. So, you know, after that, I've been independent and, you know, do whatever I want because I had the financial independence. That doesn't mean rich. That just means I had enough cash flow and I made enough profit, and I could keep this whole series of apartment buildings and houses, you know, afloat because I did it carefully. Well, the point I'm trying to make is I had an awful situation that probably would have given me a heart attack or a stroke had I stayed in it because, well, heck, you know, I had a mortgage and I had to provide for the family. Well, because I became financially independent, which I am to this day, financially independent, I can do whatever I want. I mean, it doesn't mean I can be stupid and go buy a, you know, Lamborghini, or just spend recklessly. I'm not wealthy, but I'm not dependent on anybody for income. I make my own income through farming. Well, that's how come we can be independent radio. That's how come I can say the things I say, because if they fire me, it's okay. It changes nothing in terms of income. My house doesn't depend on it. My cars don't depend on it. Nothing financial depends on radio. It only depends on the farm. So is there something that you can do like that to give you the backing of being financially independent so you can do whatever you want and just, you know, say, you know, I don't want to do this anymore?
Well, actually, I actually currently, you know, like I have planned a lot previously. I have looked into many different houses and buildings even, but actually I was not able to convert that. I've went through few problems in my life, and my credit history actually went bad after that. So
I'm not necessarily saying, Arjun, I'm not necessarily saying buy investment properties.
Yeah.
I'm not saying necessarily that. What I'm saying is there something that you can do to provide you with the economic stability / cash flow so that you can give this particular job a heave-ho and not risk losing your current living situation?
Yeah. I mean, so the thing is that, I will have to, I will have to give up on this job and then find another job. So, I mean, it's just like switching another thing. That's the most easiest option that I have done previously. And
is it so bad, Arjun, that you can't stand it? Is that really the case? It's that bad? Because there's another thing you can do, and you can do what Norm Shealy says. Dr. Shealy, you can detach. You can say to yourself, these guys that I work with are a bunch of idiots. So they'll tell me to jump this high, and I'll just jump that high. I'm not going to do any more. I'm not going to do any less. I'm just going to do what's required, and I'll build my backstop, my own independence, and I'll get another job. We'll be right back. Arjun's with us, and he has some questions about his job, and I explained and delineated what I did when I had a situation where I had a miserable working environment, but I worked for a wonderful company. It's the kind of thing where everything was going great, and then I get a new boss. They hire this new guy, and then they say, oh yeah, by the way, Vinny, you're going to report to him now, because he's the new guy that we've inserted between you and the very top management. That's what happened to me. So Arjun, Norm Shealy has said, Dr. Shealy said, stress is a killer, and absolutely no question about it is. And if you think you're going to, die of a heart attack or, stress or stroke or whatever from the situation, you need to get out of there. But if you can detach from it, which is something also that Dr. Norman Shealy talks about, if you can detach and say, these guys are just a bunch of idiots and I'm going to ignore all of it, I'm just going to do, what they asked me to do, the minimum, then you can stick with it while you build your backstop plan. Now, there are people who are petty, little people. Not physically in stature, just little people who just enjoy, being mean. Okay. So I might say in one of these calls, if I'm getting beaten up, something like this, because I really don't care, but you have to be prepared to lose your job. If you complain to the boss, you might get terminated because, well, heck, he's a complainer, even if you're right. So that's a problem. Whistleblowers are the first to get thrown out. You say, hey, the company's doing this illegally, and you think you're doing the right thing by fixing the problem, and you get fired. So you got to be careful about that if you value your job. But there are these petty people, and they do the kinds of things that you're talking about. So I might be, if I didn't care about the job, I might be tempted to say something like, what is that? I heard what you said, but is that the same way you talk to your husband or your wife or your mother or your father or your children, or you just save that from me? I might be tempted to do that, but you have to be prepared, to escalate the fight. But, the other thing you can do is start applying for those other jobs and then have one. And then, when you ultimately, leave, you can leave on your terms rather than their terms. But if you are applying for another job, I suggest that you do not say, oh, these people are horrible. They yell at me. They make fun of me. They pick on me. I wouldn't say that. I would just say, I'm looking for more challenge. Okay. I'm not being challenged very much where I am. And I know that I can do more than, they are allowing me to do. So I'm looking for, more challenge, not necessarily more money. I would never talk about money under those circumstances. Now, if you have a headhunter looking for you and wants to, bring you from one company to another company, I might say, okay, so what's in it? What are the parameters? Where is it? What is it? And how much is it? I might say something like that. Does that make any sense when I've mentioned, Arjun? I've spoken from experience. I mean, literally these things have happened to me.
No, definitely it does. And last time when we spoke, I started applying for small jobs, like in small towns, like in Missouri I tried, then I tried in Kentucky, I tried in New Mexico, where these states which have like small towns and they needed some guy with my skill set. So there might be like one job, they are still, they are working on the background checks and everything in Kentucky. It's like this city called Fort Knox or something like that. in Kentucky. So I think, but the salary will be like slashed in half the salary that I have right now. But I think it has become like unbearable here. I will try to the detached word, like that Dr. Norm Shuley explained, like it just hit me, like when he was explaining this thing. And it's an amazing thing,
Arjun, let me ask you.
Doing that, like, yes.
Arjun, you're in,
yep.
What state are you in? What state?
I'm in New Jersey, like currently I live in New Jersey, but work is in New York.
What?
Yep.
Okay. So it sounds to me like being in New York, working in New York, that would be higher income level than in many other places other than maybe Silicon Valley, California. Is that right? Your salary would be higher?
Yes, it is. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Yes,
but also living in the Garden State, New Jersey, your expenses are higher, right?
It is. Yes. It's same. It's same, almost same as like New York, but a little bit less, but almost same as New York,
Yeah. Half the pollution.
Little bit less. Yes.
Okay. All right. So,
yes.
All right. So if you move to Missouri and you could work remotely, all you need is the internet. You could get some acreage, get a few acres. You could start with an inexpensive modular home, and your expenses would be so little. I mean, your income, your taxes for your real estate could be less than $100 a year. So, your internet cost would be, 10 times what your real estate taxes would be. So I suggest, and I'm talking about Missouri, in rural Missouri. So you might want to consider that. But working with lousy people is really lousy. So I don't like doing that. I like working with nice people.
Yeah.
I really do.
Exactly.
So feel free to call and keep us up to date with what your plans are, and I'll be glad to help